Hello and welcome to this edition of the education webinar series done by the Hindu every Saturday. Today is August 30th and it's 5 o'clock time for the webinar. Today we have it is yet another AI topic, but I suppose it will break some ground, new ground. We have been discussing at least AI deployment in education. If we have not implemented it as much as we have discussed, but there's certainly much work that's going on in the background on how to deploy AI. It does involve various stakeholders, although we expect to see something from the government, sort of a policy perspective on how we will deploy AI in education. Meanwhile, countries across the world have been trying out various ways how to use this tool, so that it's not just a homework delivering mechanism. It's not something just either like a cheat sheet in an exam, but it's something that can do something more. In fact, contribute to education. We had a case almost a year ago. Notre Dame, I think the University of Notre Dame. So they had instituted ChatGPT in their curriculum. They would give history lessons, for instance, and ask students to use the tool, but the questions or their tasks will be different. It won't be just collecting information. They had to give a narrative and so on. So that is India has also seen several cases of implementation of AI, especially in higher education institutions, but not so much in schools, not officially yet. So, but at this point, there is some kind of a consensus that seems to be evolving across the world, in fact, on how exactly or what AI tool should be used or what form of AI should be used in education. They call it the Socratic AI, something that engages with students, provokes critical thinking, and so on. So we have a really lovely panel here, very distinguished panel, to tell us more about um, this version of AI that can be deployed in education to create higher order thinkers among students. So we start with Sheel. We'll ask them to introduce themselves one by one, and then they can go with their opening remarks. Or maybe, Sheel, why don't you just introduce yourself and give your opening remarks instead of going another one?
Thank you, Kalyan. Thank you. And glad to be part of this panel. Welcome, all of you. My name is Sheel. I'm an engineer and MBA from ISB Hyderabad. Been working in corporate for a long time before switching to education. I'm founder of Foge, and we are upskilling children and bridging the gap between classroom and what is required in the real world. And AI is definitely an area where we are working very closely with the schools. So the opening remark, definitely AI as everything else, and we were discussing before you joined calculator or anything, right? It is here, and we can use it in either ways. And that is what we'll be discussing, whether it is how to use it so that it enhances our critical thinking rather than hurting it. And I think that's, yeah, thank you.
We'll come back to. I thought you'll give us your take on it, but we'll come back. There's plenty of time. Anil, why don't you go next?
Hello, everyone. I'm Anil. It's a real pleasure to be here. I have planned to speak for a couple of minutes, so I'll go ahead. Now, a few years ago, back in 2022, the idea that AI could write a screenplay, debug code, write code from scratch, it was science fiction. And in 2023, it was a reality. And then in 2024, many more things felt impossible, like can a movie be made by AI? In 2025, that's a reality. The pace of AI is so frantic that trying to predict what's going to happen next year is like it's a fool's errand. It's moving at a very fast, disruptive pace. But I think in this talks contest, it makes it very crucial and critical. So now, before we dive in a little bit about my journey, I've spent many years as a senior engineering lead at Google, at the heart of the tech world. And then I left to co-found Calvium, where we partner with 20 universities, more than 20 universities, to transform computer science education. And the focus is one thing, which is making students truly ready for the real world. Now, when we talk about AI in education, I typically find people are mixing up two things, and this distinction is everything. So, on the one hand, AI is a tool for doing. So, AI, this is the AI that works for you. It writes the email, it drafts the report, it writes the code, and it's an incredibly powerful assistant. And this is where I think the fear also comes from. The worry is that students will use it to do the homework and copy paste job and not really learn. But the second actual category, when you think about it, is AI as a tool for learning, not for doing. AI as a tool for learning. And this is where AI can teach you. And there, the goal isn't to give the answer, but to guide you in finding the answer and learning. This is where an AI can act as a tutor. And as a tutor, AI is a very powerful. It outperforms even human tutors on three dimensions, which I call three P's: presence, patience, and personalization. It's always there, it's always present. If at 2 a.m. on a Sunday you want to ask a doubt, it's there. And it has infinite patience. You want to go over that point again and again and again for 5 hours, it's there. And it will re explain it in 20 different ways until you understand. The third P, which is it personalizes. It is something that works only for you, understanding however you are getting or not getting a topic and figuring it out for you, just like it is for everyone else on their own separate personalized journey. And for me specifically, this isn't theory, because at Kalvium we exactly use this, what we call AI micro tutors. We actively, as of today, thousands of students, 2 to 5 sessions every day are getting this personalized feedback. And the results are fantastic in that the growth rate of their learning is unprecedented. And if you look up a bit more about what our students are doing, it will stand out. And this gets very real and practical for me because I also lead Galbium Labs, which is an initiative where our students build real world software for businesses. So clients come to us, ask for some software, website, mobile, AI flow to be built, and our students are doing it. Which means here you can't have AI do the work. You actually have to understand the problem statement, and you need genuine critical thinking skills. So we need to develop that in our students because we're relying on that critical thinking skill. So, in my opinion, looking forward, I'm certain that this tutor model will become very powerful, expanding beyond technology into humanities, professional skills, financial literacy. All of these places, AI is going to play a critical role in imparting that literacy. There is research work in AI safety that's going on, which is important because you don't want it going off the rails. So-called guardrails have to be put so that it's doing the job well and not. We hear some news stories about how someone gets completely misdirected by AI. How do we stop that? So there's research work going there. I'll close with this. AI will be disruptive as internet or smartphones, and how we are going to work with this is going to define our generation. Back over to the panel.
Excellent. I asked Professor Karthik Raman of IIT Madras to give his take on this topic. He's someone who's involved in not just teaching and research, but also in policy making. So tell us, sir, what is the thinking on how to exactly use AI, primary school, middle school, high school, higher secondary, college, or are there any differences? Are they all the same? What's the thinking?
Thank you for the opportunity to be on this panel. I'm Karthik Raman. I'm a faculty at the Department of Data Science and AI at the Vadhwani School of Data Science and AI at IIT Madras. I also am part of the Center for Responsible AI. Right, so you had some mention of responsible AI earlier in this conversation. So these are all like very exciting times for us because there are very exciting research problems to be solved in this space, and also very interesting policy decisions that need to be made, and how do you guide students and younger children through this. So it's a quick comeback to Mr. Kalyan's question. Definitely, everyone started using AI, right? So AI is already here. So now we need to quickly address this challenge of how does one responsibly use AI, right? So what are the ethics of using AI, and also essentially impart AI literacy to all students, because it's quite important for students to understand what is it that they are using, what are the whether to trust the results, how to trust the results, and so on. So these are some things that we've been doing at IIT Madras. We've been trying to develop an AI curriculum for schools, and we're also working with government agencies and so on to revamp curricula across the nation. And more importantly, we've been looking at very interesting problems in this space. And as we go on during the conversation, I will try to also share some experience as a teacher. Right, I'm a professor of where I teach first year courses on data structures and programming to students, and what are the challenges in and advantages of using AI in these scenarios. Right, so there are like some really exciting opportunities here, exciting challenges, and but I think we are in for some really exciting times ahead.
Exciting times. Okay. More disruption or less excitement? Wouldn't we do with less excitement and less disruption and more structure? Well, I don't know. It's your
I'm an optimist, so
okay. No, well, we hear about the job losses that they are being attributed to AI, so we're just beginning to see the real impact. So, what exactly it's going to do to education? As Anil was saying, it's changing so fast. We don't know what's going to come. But right now, this seems to be the consensus. We'll hear Banu. Tell us, Banu, what's your take on this topic?
Thanks, Kalyan. It's good to hear the takes of Sheel, Anil, and Professor Karthik. Coming at the end, I will have challenge in adding something new. But here is my view, right? Um, the entry of a new technology into the learning space or into any particular vertical, this is not the new time we as a species are facing, right? We had typewriters get replaced with computers. We had typists and stenographers lose their jobs and become computer operators. A similar set of transition will happen with AI as well. My entire focus here is to really figure out what use cases can we build for different users or different types of users in and around AI such that their human potential is enhanced, which basically means uh, how do they use AI as a partner, as a secretary, or as an assistant, and not succumb to AI leading their thinking, right? Here is where comes the conversation of like Professor Karthik said, at a population scale, can we help people understand what AI is, which is what we call as AI literacy, and then start encouraging people to come out with use cases of, what is the best way to learn with AI? What is the best way to get work done with AI? What is the best way to research with AI as a partner? What is the best way to co think with AI? Those are the use cases which we need to start figuring out. And that is an entirely discovery led process. Uh, what is interesting with AI is a lot of technology actually gets, uh, built for a quite a long time in the labs, and then when it is fairly stable from a market point of view, then it comes in and gets mainstreamed. AI is one of the first scenario where we're actually seeing that things are in the market, and organizations are rapidly evolving the technology from inside the market as opposed to inside the labs. So that is an interesting dimension to also keep a watch of. My background primarily rests in the intersection of emerging technologies and the SDG verticals, which is education and learning, livelihoods, and health and agriculture. And I look at figuring out how new technology, which is like AI in the current few years, is going to shape, transform, and create value in multiple sectors like this. But back over to you, Kalyan, and then we'll continue the conversation.
Okay, I think we'll flash a question. Harish Kumar Lalawat. He's saying, does the growing reliance, this sort of sets the context for this webinar. So we're starting early with this question. Does the growing reliance on AI for quick answers risk weakening the problem solving and critical reasoning skills of the next generation? If so, how can we design guardrails to prevent this? Who wants to go?
I can take that. So this is definitely a very interesting question. And I was actually in talks with another, an AI startup, and they were saying that one of the important things could be that see, we talk about personalization of AI, right? So can you personalize it to the age of the user?
Sure.
Because if a 10-year-old is asking a particular question, he or she needs to be told an answer in a different way than if it's like a 15-year-old or like a 40-year-old, right, who may not be a student. But this is definitely an important question and a concern, right? So because if students start offloading their critical reasoning skills to AI, it's going to be a challenge, right? And I usually push the students. I tell them that, hey, it's absolutely fine to use AI for learning, but you cannot use AI for homework. And it's like this is quite a tough ask, right? So, and we need the better tools. But if you see what has been happening, right, I think even folks like OpenAI have quickly realized that one of the biggest markets is in education and in learning. And I think many of you may have noticed that OpenAI has released a study mode for ChatGPT, right, which is supposed to go about learning in a Socratic way, right? So nudging the student towards an answer. In fact, Khanmigo was doing this earlier and so on. But with somebody like OpenAI understanding the importance of this could potentially be woven in as a guardrail for younger students, right? For students and so on, right? So this is a challenge. So if you can have like we did see some recent news about parental controls getting built into Chat GPT and so on. So this could again be something similar, right? So you could have learning controls built into Chat GPT. It's not inconceivable. Or we could have newer products that leverage tools like Chat GPT, but have these additional guardrails built, which may be more promising for, say, educators, schools, and even higher education and so on.
Yeah, I would like just like to come on the back of what Professor Karthik has said. Professor Karthik has eloquently articulated about what the product companies and the platforms can actually do to safeguard on the critical thinking side. There is, as a nation, I think we have one more additional layer of work which we need to do, which is with the educators and teachers themselves, right? And Professor Karthik talked about his own experience of discovering and figuring out how AI should be used in his teaching learning process at a higher education level. In a similar manner, we as a nation, as an education department or a state education department or a community of teachers, should really start thinking about what is the pedagogic practice, how the pedagogic practice with AI in the mix going to change, right? It could be as simple as I'm in grade 5, I'm a grade 5 teacher and I'm asking my children to write an essay, right? Now, all of these people, even if they don't have access to anything like ChatGPT or anything like that, which is a paid version or whatever, everything is there's a free part for everything. The worst case, they have Meta AI sitting in WhatsApp to ask it to do that work, right? How can I, as a teacher, be coached and guided to transform my teaching learning practice around essay teaching to say that AI is a part of the game plan, and I figure out how to use AI. Like, for example, a very simplistic example could be, um, I could give an exercise saying, go to AI or 3 different AI tools and ask it to write the essay. Bring all those essays to the classroom, and in the classroom, you look at all of those things and you write a better essay applying yourself, right? Wherein I'm creating these compartments where AI is used, and where a compartment where the student or the learner clearly understands that he or she is applying himself or herself. And these are certain tool setting which needs to be done in terms of designing the pedagogic practices. Uh, and it's a discovery process, like I said, and I think there's a lot of work which needs to unfold in that area. A lot of pioneering educators, both at the higher education level and the K-12 and even the primary grades, are starting to do it on their own. But I think there needs to be a piece of work where uh, you know a practice guide or a body of knowledge of pet practices with AI across age levels to ensure critical thinking is sustained and nurtured in the learners. That is an interesting body of work, which is a white space at this point in time, which needs to be done for us as
Yeah.
a nation to go
Right.
forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Banu. And adding on to that point, right? So one thing is that we are designing it from the policy point of view. We are also educating the teachers how to use it right. Another thing that we can do actually is to make the students aware of it, right? So help them, catch them early when they are starting in their schooling right from primary grade. Most of the countries like China and US have already made the policy to start right from grade 1. I think these are the kind of things that we require in India as well. Help them understand that how they can use AI. And to give you a few examples, like one of the student I was talking very recently, like few days back, was actually complaining that my teacher asks me to copy the answers from the book. You say AI is hurting my critical thinking. I say my critical thinking any which ways is not being built in the current education system either, and which is correct, and which actually tells that students are sharp enough to realize this gap, that what practices actually helps them solve the real world problem, be prepared for what is coming ahead. And one of the things that for the benefit of the audience you all can do or tell your children is to use AI as, let's say, role plays or devil's advocate. Instead of giving a simple prompt like do my homework or why don't you tell me this topic, for example, tell me about Newton's law, right? It is a very simple prompt given to chat gpt, even study mode of chat gpt. Another way to give the same prompt is that, hey, I was watching cricket ball spinning, why don't you help me understand Newton's law being applied to this particular real world example, right? See how different the output or the learning of this simple prompt can be if the student just applies little bit of thinking and tries to relate it to real world, right? So this is how we need to handhold the children and make them understand that what prompt they should use, how they should use the tools which is already available, rather than giving like simple prompts that do this work for me.
We will flash Atif Sheikh. He takes the discussion to the next level. He's asking what kind of metrics or indicators can we use to assess if AI is genuinely enhancing students' critical thinking rather than merely improving their speed at retrieving information. Well, I would ask someone to explain what do you exactly mean by saying that this will provoke critical thinking among students. Critical thinking is, I suppose, it's a much used and abused word these days, but how does it do it? We hear about Socratic method and so on. Can someone give a tutorial on that? And also, what are the tools you mentioned? OpenAI's study mode, and this, I believe Google has a tool to tell us more about what are the tools that parents can make available to their children, or perhaps teachers can make available to students right now to ensure that this happens?
Maybe I would like to come in here because I think I have a very specific answer for Atif. For example, in what is the metric that is to be used to see if actually critical thinking skills is being enhanced is to measure that whether that conceptual learning has happened for a student or not. Now, for example, in the programs that Kalviam runs, we actually have a course on critical thinking, and we deploy a tutor internally that we call EV, and EV goes and measures whether a student understood. Let's take one concept within critical thinking is confirmation bias. It's one of the chapters, one of the lessons, one of the concepts. Did a student understand what is confirmation bias? How can we measure that? We can measure that by checking and asking the student. For example, we used a mini chat like flow where a student is asked to give example, and then there's a follow-on conversation about with feedback on what exactly did you understand by confirmation bias. And if a student is actually able to present examples that show that, oh, in this case, person A did this, person B did this, and hence this is confirmation bias of person A, then we actually have measured that the student understood this one concept. Now, critical thinking is a basket of, let's say, 50 such concepts. If you can individually measure on this, someone who's demonstrated literacy on, say, 40 of the 50 things, and someone else who's demonstrated on, say, 10 out of the 50 things, you can actually say that the student A actually understands critical thinking better. This is in fact how we are doing it live today across 20 universities. And this is one way we have found of actually making a metric. And this actually correlates with their final exam scores. So this is how we can actually measure whether someone has learned something or not. And this would be impossible to do without AI, by the way. Back to the panel.
I would like to also come on the back of Anil. Anil gave a very fantastic example of how critical thinking can be sustained even while working along with AI, where learners working along with AI in the higher ed space, right? I'll go to the other end of the spectrum. Let me just go to the grade 1 to 3, right? We need to ask ourselves the questions of at grade 1 to 3 level, who is the AI for? Is the AI for the child as a learner, or is the AI for the parent as a assisting player for the child, or is the AI for the teacher, right? It does not always need to be about the learner only. It could also be about the person who is teaching and facilitating the learning process, right? In my mind, let's just look at this whole construct of grade 1 to 5. This journey of learning words, spellings, writing small sentences, longer sentences, paragraphs, and maybe an essay. That is a whole journey. And we have our own FLN mission, which has been spending a lot of effort, intellect, and money from the exchequer's side in this particular area, right? I think we as a nation should also start thinking about, are there tools which we can build very surgically for teachers at those grade levels to assist them to create better learning outcomes for children without the children necessarily interacting with AI. Case in example could be, every week, if there are 3 dictation sheets or 3 writing assignments or 3 math worksheets which are done by a child, can all of this just get photographed and sent to the system, which will then start bifurcating my class of 30 children into 3 buckets or 4 buckets and say, this set of people, they are good, give them more access and move them forward. These are the last 10 people who are struggling, and that's where you need to focus on ABC concepts or ABC things so that you can move them to the next step, right? Which is case in point, the personalization which Anil was talking about, right? While there would be mass market products like OpenAIs and Geminis and all of these things, which are very broad based, I think we also need to start thinking about, is there a point in time where uh, the tool setting of AI becomes an institutionalized component of an education department or the school department itself? And what would it look like? What would that solution look like at scale where all children, irrespective of their socioeconomic layers, are getting the benefit of it? There are all these other dimensions also to look at when we look at AI, to also start thinking about not just the people who are currently able to access these tools, but what about all those students, children, and teachers who are currently not able to access these tools, either because of cost reasons, or because of infrastructure and connectivity reasons, or because of just the fact that there isn't enough in my mother tongue in terms of learning data, and thereby the AI tools are not able to play their role.
Yeah, building on to Bhanu's point, one very important point that he said was about personalized learning, right? One of the very big advantages of AI can be personalized learning for the students. We all know that there are number of students, like 40, 50, even 100 students sitting in a class, and always the teacher will be teaching to the average level. In which case, the child who is actually ahead gets bored, and the child who is actually lagging actually is not able to follow what the teacher is saying, right? So one of the big advantages of AI is helping and improving this. And how we can do is there are a lot of digital tools that are freely available. Google, Microsoft, all are coming out with tools for educators, and we can use AI and stitch those tools. So for example, one of the things we discussed is about checking the work of students. The feedback that goes currently is late, and what happens by the time when the student has received the feedback, he or she has already lost interest in that topic. So if we can give timely feedback, if the teachers can use, let's say, digital platforms, quizzes which are online, and use AI to assess it, and give recommendations at a personal level. Obviously, for a single teacher, it's not possible to do it for 100, but with the use of AI, it can very well be made possible. And at least at the institutions level, which are higher grade level, these kind of tools will be very beneficial if implemented well.
Thanks, Sheil.
So the great
I just
points
wanted to
by all.
say, I'll come back to you, sir. I just wanted to tell people who are watching that there is a prize. The best questions, not just one question. There could be several questions that the panelists can decide. The best ones will get free access to the Hindu online. That's a treasure trove of information. There's much in the website that you can, including the archives. So go ahead, please post your questions. We'll try to get them answered, as many as possible. But I did have a follow-up with the professor. Sir, tell me, enlighten me on what is this philosophy of critical thinking. For instance, you go to ChatGPT. What will a critical thinking ChatGPT, critical thinking aiding ChatGPT or AI tool will do to me? How will it interact with me?
So just I had a couple of quick comebacks on what Sheil was saying. So I'll just start with that and again get to this question. So one thing is I think personalized education is great. So I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But just the fact that can AI increase engagement, I think this is a great opportunity, right? Are these AI based? Suppose I were to give a personalized exercise to a student, is it going to encourage him or her to spend more time on that worksheet? So this is fantastic, right? So even Anil was saying that they are building a lot of these tools which even engage in critical thinking and so on. But just the fact that the student engages with this tool for a longer time, spends more time learning a subject, is already a huge indicator of improvement in expertise or competency in that subject. So this way, I think it's great, and personalized learning can really help, right? So imagine you can't imagine a teacher creating 40 worksheets for 40 students in a class, but AI can just do it, right? You just say, hey, these are the students' performances in the previous test. I want 40 worksheets. Of course, the teacher will have to quickly eyeball those worksheets to make sure it's all making sense. But still, it's a fantastic possibility. And today, I think we have to rethink those things. And coming back to Kalyan's major question on, what is critical thinking? So I think the AI has to ensure that it cultivates, uh, you know, the ability to discern in the student, right? So it's not just about quickly giving an answer, and this is the challenge that I think everybody debates, right? There are so many layers of critical thinking. I think Anil had some good points about confirmation bias. There are like a bunch of a large set of biases that are typically there, and whenever you do any study and so on. So that is critical thinking on the one hand. But what I would focus on is, suppose you're trying to learn a concept and you're trying to go to ChatGPT to figure out more about that concept. Does ChatGPT just spoon feed you, or does it help you arrive at the concept? So to really expand a little bit more on it, a good teacher would sort of unravel the concept layer by layer so that the student has this oh wow eureka moment at the end, right? So if ChatGPT can pull this off, and it just needs a little bit structure. You have to prompt it right? You just go and tell me, just as Neil was giving this example about a spinning ball, right? So if you just go and tell ChatGPT, give me, tell me what are Newton's laws, or write an essay on Newton's law. Instead, say that, hey, I want to see what is the intersection. In fact, this is what a teacher would probably like to do, right? Give me 3 or 4 exciting examples that I can teach a third year, a sixth standard student on Newton's law. And this way, the teacher can slowly say, hey, does this involve Newton's law or not? And promote critical thinking in the student, right? So I would simply here quickly put critical thinking as deeper fundamental understanding of a concept rather than a superficial, just typical rote learning, typical, just say, hey, these are the key phrases. So I see that all the time in the exams, right? When students don't know the answer, they dump a few key phrases they've encountered across the course on the answer sheet, right? This is the exact opposite of what we would like to achieve using critical thinking, right? So we want students to really discern, hey, this is the deep concept that is underlying this particular question. And for instance, in my exams, I always do this, much to the chagrin of my students. True or false, they have to explain the answers. They cannot just say true or false. They'll have to say, why is this true? They have to give a sort of critical explanation, which helps helps me convince myself that the student has understood the concept.
Yeah,
Okay,
and one point I'll add to Karthik's point. I know it is not possible currently for teacher to give, let's say, 40 sheets, or it is difficult. But what can easily be done by teachers is, instead of giving one single lesson plan, churn out 3 lesson plans and ask ChatGPT or Perplexity or whichever tool you are using to have the level of the plan, one at the higher level, one at the intermediate average level, and the last one at the beginner level. So whenever we present at anything, that we have this in the slide itself, we have 3 different set of problems on the same topic. So let's say Newton's law starts with simple, and based on students own level, they are picking up that topic. So they are picking up the question on the same topic, but then they all are actually having personalized learning to a bit of 1/3 ratio. Sorry, Kalyana.
So to sort of segue from where we were, from what Anil was saying, so there's a nice comment. There's a concern about confirmation bias in AI, especially due to hallucinations. Well, not just hallucination. I suppose AI is meant to sort of be sort of construct a profile of you so that it tailors. It's like the YouTube algorithm, right? So there is sort of inbuilt.
Yeah, it
Sorry?
will learn. It will learn who you are and operate in a way that you will like it.
Well, yes, that's the problem. There was this New York Times article. I don't know if you read it. A kid, a teen, where used AI. He was depressed, and it led him to suicide.
Yeah.
No,
Because it's blind. It
new
has
term
no
for
ethical standpoints. It's just playing to that person. But isn't that important when you talk about AI being used to, critical thinking? It is to
Yeah,
kindle critical thinking. Is this a problem?
No,
I
it's
want
definitely.
to.
Saying.
I just have a quick comment. So ChatGPT was OpenAI was actually acknowledging this was a problem with one of their models, and you'll be amused to know the term that they gave, and it's a perfect term: psychophancy. So
Yeah, in Hindi, Chamchagiri.
to
Indeed,
hack the
this.
model to reduce its psychophancy, because it just keeps saying, "Hey, that's great, right?" So Karthik, that's a brilliant point that you made, and I think that's the way to think about this problem. No, right? I want somebody to question my
You
understanding.
have nailed it.
Yes, you've nailed it. Yes, right.
No,
So I think,
it's I.
but
Well, I was
I've
talking
seen
to
that
Go
there
ahead,
are.
go
This
ahead.
is why you should try to use multiple models, right? I've actually seen that Google's Notebook LM, and I don't know if people have used much of it. It's not your vanilla, language model, but it's actually rooted on the source that you give. You can give it a textbook and ask it to answer certain questions or reply to certain questions and so on, and it will give you with a particular source. And I've always seen that Notebook LM is the opposite of psychophancy. It tries to say, "Hey, I don't think your understanding is right. This is what is actually said in the book." And that is what I really like. And I can, of course, confirm that that's what's happening. I can go back to the page number and see that's what's happening. So I think this is why we need to try multiple models and see, because definitely confirmation bias and psychophancy could be a huge problem with some of the models that exist.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think one of the ways is to personalize the tools that you are using. So, for example, ChatGPT and all, they all have ways for us to personalize it. Like I always put it there that add my devil's advocate, like do not have this confirmation bias whenever you are responding to me, and it is stored in there as a way to talk to me. So these kind of settings we have. I'm not sure how many of us are aware, but if we try and whichever tools you use, do the settings properly, and that these kind of things will be taken care of.
I would like to. I don't think it's the consumer's responsibility to fix this. It is the models and the model companies that need to fix this. And for what it's worth, the industry takes it seriously. Within the industry, the term for this is AI safety. AI safety means how do I ensure that right from how I'm training, my training data, to what is output in varying situations. Companies have lakhs worth of data set where they test, if I say this, what is the model saying, and so forth. And companies are taking AI safely seriously. I will acknowledge the worry of the viewers here, which is indeed, I mean, psychophancy is a small problem. Bigger problem is, I think, the example you cited, where if someone is in a depression and they go to AI as a counselor and it takes them down a wrong path, that's a far worse situation. So fixing these is the responsibility of the model providers putting the right guardrails, ensuring that these, I think one way or the other, if the companies themselves don't do it, governments are going to enforce it. It is the responsibility. We can't rely on someone knowing some setting in GPT or in Gemini. We shouldn't. I mean, this responsibility should not be taken by consumers. If people, I mean, companies are putting out such powerful models out there, they have to take AI safety seriously. And if they don't, they need to be just disbanded. I think policy has to get formed here, but this is so fast, so disruptive that you're just reviewing the previous model and the next new powerful thing is out, and you have to go back onto square one. I think we'll see some policy come out in the coming 1 to 2 years, but the responsibility squarely lies with the model creators. Is something I would like to add to this.
So the AI for education tools should be quite different from the AI that others use.
Absolutely.
Come in here on the back of Anil and Kalyan, whatever you just now said. When the AI products and models are created by large private sector players, they obviously need they have their own angle of who are they building for and how many countries and across how many countries the same product works. All of that, scale optimization and all of that is thought through, right? However, when we come to the scenarios of AI in education, particularly in the lower grades, where the education is predominantly happening in the mother tongue, I'm just again bringing the point back that when we are talking about AI in education, we are not really talking about AI in only English medium schools. We have to talk about what does AI mean in a Bengali school in a particular village in West Bengal, what it would mean in Odisha in a village, what it would mean in Andhra Pradesh as a village, and there's this whole segment of India being the kind of diverse market it is, and education as a fundamental responsibility of the government to be offered to everyone in the citizens. We also have to start thinking from a policy point of view as to how are we going to ready ourselves to cater to this variety situation which we have in India, particularly in grades pre-primary all the way till grade 8, which is extremely nuanced, hyper local. A lot of data is adequately not yet digitized, not yet labeled. But at the same time, if you take states like Odisha and all, there are few million children, I think few tens of million children in those grades, which are larger than populations of some of the European countries. Who's thinking about building for them? These are all certain other questions which have to be looked at. And I think some part of the building will obviously happen by the private sector and the global operators and all of that stuff. But as things go forward, I think from a policy and the government and institutional side, we also need to start looking at what are the pockets where the market is not operating, and then how do we backfill for that? Or do we start creating two classes of learners? One class of learners who have access to these market available AI options, and one class of learners who actually would do without all of those for the next 15, 20 years. And what will that mean to us as a country? And what will that mean for our own AI aspirations as an economy?
Would someone like to take this point? What is raised is really important.
I don't. Okay, I have a strong view on this, which is I think government's role in education is ensuring universal education for all. But I don't think government should build the solution. I think solution should be left to the market, but government should be there to ensure. I mean, we know the talk about, hey, which stream do you come from? Which schools do you come from? And depending on where someone is coming from, there is a certain knowledge level attributed. I think when the right policies are set and the markets are left to decide, the right set of things will come up. For example, I think the challenge that was called out, which is what are we going to do across so many languages? India has at least 25 to 30 languages that can be primary. How are we going to support every single student across each one of these languages? So one of the places actually that these models are doing well is even with a very small sample set of data, they're able to learn the language. It may not be as perfect as say English, but you'll be surprised how small a data set is needed for language models to learn how to communicate in it. I think there's efforts like Sarvam and others, which are anyway going to build out the backbone on top of which these tools can be built. These tools, we need to experiment as widely as possible, see what works, and double down on them. And this is, in some sense, we are in some AI bubble where so many things are being tried out, so many things are being invested in. After this pops, there will be a residue of things that work that we will double down on and actually give value to every single student. But that personalization that's coming, I'm extremely optimistic about that. Every single student getting the help that they need where they need. This is going
Yeah,
to be the new world. And
At
as
the
an
level,
educator,
yeah,
at the
Anil,
level.
coming on the back, and I totally agree with you that you know the government may not be the best entity to actually build stuff, but it absolutely has a responsibility of playing the role of an enabler to ensure kids and large populations are not left behind. Which also brings the question of uh, and like you rightly said, without requiring a ton of data, with a smaller set of data, you can pretty easily create a parallel dictation sheet or a math practice, tool with smaller set of data. That again brings me to another question, which has been in my mind at least, is um, who will start owning the uh, learning data, or would it be sovereign? Would it be like let's look at the set of all dictation sheets collected for 1 year in the state of Tamil Nadu in government schools. Is that the property of the state education department, or who, on which models can then be created, right? I'm just kind of thinking about the readiness for that, because the government can say that yes, come and build, but without the government then doing a little bit more the technical supply chain in the back, or enabling that, the market cannot then apply itself. So I know it's a larger complicated question, but that is something which I always struggle with my mind as to how that will play out as well.
Banu, this is getting really deep. I hope we can come back to it, or probably do another webinar on this topic. I remember when software was being considered for use in government, there was a big argument that the government should only go for free software. But then, because there was this big for and against, you were either with free software or with Microsoft and others. But then later on, things sort of synergized in some way. The whole thing got worked out, and then so I mean, the debate went a little on the other side. There was that sharp contradiction was not there. Perhaps something like that would happen in AI too. But we will come back to it. I'm hoping we'll do another webinar where you can also come and in on that very crucial aspect, but which is a little off tangent
Yeah,
to what we're discussing. So to bring it sort of back to my apologies, Banu, but
no,
you
no,
raised
no.
a very important point. We will come back to it, but I will flash Sayani Sengupta. She's asking. She's a very interesting question. Does increased AI usage lead to validation seeking attitude that could harm the creativity of young people's students? I was speaking to a student, and for her, her chat GPT was like her personal friend, counselor, parent. She's living in a hostel. So I tell chat GPT everything she says. So it's like, like a personal god or something, you have this idea in some religions that the god is something very personal to you. So this chat gpt is something, it understands you, it has built a profile of you, it's going to feed you. So if that is the level of engagement, or that's how AI tools are being seen, does it lead to more validation seeking attitude? Because that corresponds to critical thinking, right? I mean, it sort of goes against critical thinking. What would you say to this? That could harm their creativity.
So I'll try and add one flavor to it. We all have heard this word psychosis recently, right? Wherein you are too much emotionally dependent on AI tools and you stop liking the real world, right? That's what will happen with the over dependence of any of the tools. And I think one of the things that as elders, educators, or parents need to do is to make them aware, right? Just like we have scams, and then we tell our children not to, or even adults, right, not to click on this link because it will lead you to scam. So awareness is, I think, step one, and policy and all, as and when it comes, can definitely play a guiding role. But until then, make our students or kids aware of it, that these are the challenges, this is the level of thinking you require before you put in your ask to any of the AI tool. This is the information that you can safely share, this is the information you should not be sharing, this is the level of comfort you should seek, this is ultimately not your friend, this is artificial. So I think talking to students, making them aware of the things is very critical, because they are at a stage where their brains are not fully developed, especially at the pre-primary and primary and even in the middle school level. And it is important to handhold them so that they are not getting lost in these things. The suicide students and all those things is actually very disheartening, and I think it's our responsibility to handhold them and tell them until the policy plays its part.
Thanks, Sheil. Would anyone else like to weigh in too? Does AI promote validation seeking?
I definitely agree with what Sheel said, and definitely we need some more guardrails placed, right? I think we have simple guardrails that are coming on in like your phone in terms of say just this digital health and things like that, right? It tells you, hey, you've been using Instagram for like more than 15 minutes today. I think that's like a very, very simplistic example of something that could be more profound, right? So when somebody really starts treating ChatGPT as the personal god, as you said, ChatGPT or the chat bot has to weigh in and say, hey, I think you need a digital break, or there have to be safeguards that are built in. Definitely, I don't think there's any two opinions about that, and I suspect, right, we should start seeing more products that build on these tools and have more safeguards in it, right, which don't undermine the usage of the tool, which could probably be more popular, right? I think we had. It's just like when Chrome became the de facto browser, we still started having so many variants of Chrome. Still, a lot of people use Chrome. There are a lot of people who use Brave or other browsers that are built on the Chrome engine, and with newer features and newer abilities built on top of it. I think that's probably a way to go here, where we need definitely a safer LLM to talk to.
Very well put, Professor. Thank you for that. Piyush Pandey, he's asking, at what stage should children be introduced to AI? So, in what stage? How young can they be?
Maybe I will come in here. So we have
With
done,
critical thinking in mind, I just
yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to.
yeah. We have done extensive research in around 8,000 plus locations around the country, trying to figure out how people are interacting. What we are seeing is that even in the rural settings, around 80% or near about 80% of the middle school children have access to a smartphone, whether it belongs to the family or a neighbor or a elder cousin or whoever, and the usage is upwards of around 30, 40 minutes a day, right? And a lot of that usage is actually now starting to be with AI, right? Even if they're seeing YouTube, or even if they're seeing reels or shorts, the next reel or the next shot is getting served by AI, and the fact that they don't know that they're being taken into tunnel is a cause for concern, right? So the point in time when the students start interacting with the digital world is also the point in time where they should be introduced to AI literacy and good and bad practices about AI and being conscious user of AI. At this point in time, in our own market in India, in the rural settings, it looks like it is the middle grades. In the urban centers, it looks like even at as early as grade 4 and 5.
Yeah, and I would like to add. So at Fugge, we are teaching it from grade 1 to 8, and obviously it is at student grade level. And I keep getting calls from parents whose children are 4.5, that please take my child and teach them AI. So and we have to put a strict limit to age 6 onward. I mean, just adding to that.
Yeah,
I think
I think.
we add to that. Oh, sorry, Anil.
No, I was just maybe putting. I think after cinema came out as a technology, about 100 years ago, slowly the world figured out standards like this is general audience, this is 7+, this is
Yes.
adult, and so forth. We are early, very early in the disruption that AI is bringing. I suspect that such standardizations will come up shortly. What shape it will take? Even I have a 7-year-old, 3-year-old. I'm also seeking these answers. Definitely, that feels early, especially as a tool for doing the task. But as a tool for learning, probably earlier could be made to work. Just some thoughts.
Okay, Pranesh
There are
Kannan.
Yeah, there are two dimensions of interacting
Go
with
ahead, go
AI.
ahead.
Right? One is as a normal user who is interacting with tools which either directly or indirectly use AI to serve me, where I'm a general user and I need to know what AI is and how I'm dealing with AI. Which is one part of dealing with AI. The other part of dealing with AI is starting to really start learning about building towards AI or that journey, right? Which starts with computational thinking and all the way upwards, right? Uh, uh, we also have to understand that for each of these paths, the start point would be different and not the same. Back to you, Kalyan.
Okay. Pranesh Kannan is asking, with industries increasingly relying on AI, what kind of, this is very current. We do know that some of the job losses we've seen in tech are because of AI, and there's been a big call for, where critical thinking skills should be important to students, because AI would do most of the routine jobs in future, I suppose. So, what kinds of critical thinking skills? What kind?
I would just come with a 1 minute answer here and then pass it on to everybody else. Not necessarily pointed to critical thinking, but to the question. Everybody who is in a job role today has to start bifurcating the set of tasks he or she is doing, which will be replaced by AI and can be replaced by AI, and the higher order set of tasks and functions he or she is doing, which AI may not be able to replace currently or maybe in the next 2-3 years at least. And at every point in time, figuring out how do I use AI to get the first set of the works done faster. And I personally spend more time on the higher order tasks so that I become a valuable professional to continue to stay in the market. That I think is one way to game plan this and move forward, as opposed to trying to fight AI. I don't think we can fight AI as professionals. It is already here and now, and it will continue to remain. And I think this constant evaluation of where is it AI currently, what can I, offload to it, what part of my work can I offload to it and become efficient, release time to do the higher order work.
Yeah, I would like to add, Bhanu has put it very succinctly, very nicely said. If we differentiate what is required in the industry, there are two parts to it. The first is the hard skill, which is technical, or the one that is required, which is all this mechanical engineering, or you are doing some manufacturing, right? The part which actually you do, like your execution. And the second part is the soft skills. And definitely, if you go up in the ladder, even in corporate, soft skills starts becoming more and more important. How well you interact with your team, how well can you inspire your team, how well can you lead them, how well you communicate, how well you empathize with your customers, right? Even if we take the example, even let's say AI is going to replace coding, for example, right? Vibe coding is coming and a lot of coders are using it now. There are layoffs in software development. Even then, the problem to solve, right? So, okay, everybody can do vibe coding, but what exactly are we going to build, which is the problem solving, critical thinking? I know there are, these are all softer skills and harder to develop, even harder to measure, but these are the things that I think we need to look forward or start building towards to stay current. And as Bhanu very rightly said, it is all an evolving situation. We need to constantly keep on the lookout that what is it that I'm doing and versus what I need to learn to stay relevant.
Okay, Pranesh Kannan has another follow-up question. Should ethical reasoning be considered a critical part of critical thinking? Core part of critical thinking in the age of AI, and how can AI tools themselves be used to highlight ethical dilemmas to train students? Does the AI model lend itself to ethical considerations?
I would say ethics are anyway needed for any professional, whether in the age of AI or not in the age of AI. So the answer is universal yes. Beyond that, whether use of AI itself is ethical or not, I can't see a reason why it's a tool. It's a fantastic tool. It can be used ethically and non-ethically. Use it ethically. But I think ethics is fundamental to any profession. I guess it's a simple
But I
answer.
think I think this is where it's very important to be culturally rooted and things like that, right? So it's very important to have very contextual ethics and so on. So and be aware of the wider implications and the wider spectrum of possible opinions and systems and so on. So this is something that AI may or may not do. So we need guardrails for all of these things, right? So I think fantastic questions we are seeing today, where people are really putting, hitting the nail on the head when it comes to some of the key challenges that are confounding all experts today. And I think really interesting to time that we go and search for all these answers.
Okay, someone wants a JE question. So if AI can solve traditional exam questions instantly, then what forms of how will the JE change? I believe AI took the test and did well, number 3 or something.
I mean, the what is the Google's AI beat AlphaGo, beat the best player in AlphaGo. Before that,
Right.
Blue beat Gary Kasparov. Chess has not
Yes.
gone away. Go has not gone away. Sure, AI can solve JE. So what? The exam is serving a purpose, which is a summative check. Okay, how well are you? How well is your knowledge base? How well are your skills? That's the purpose of an exam, and that will continue to be
No,
there
so
in the future.
should JE change?
Not really. For now, it's a pen and paper. Maybe it can move digital with the right proctoring and so forth. But exam is I mean, in my opinion, JEE should change. It's such a knowledge-based test. And in the new world, I think knowledge is less important. The higher order skills are more important. So in my opinion, absolutely JEE should change. But whatever form it takes, I think exams will remain and should remain, whether or not AI can solve them. But also,
Someone
yes,
is
JEE should change.
well. Someone is not. Someone is being quiet.
Point.
I have to be quiet, I guess. But I think because as a teacher, we like to. We are still very focused on testing for certain concepts, right? So I think we do not want to change that very quickly. But I think some of the questions raised do point towards that. Should I give different types of assignments and so on? Yes, definitely. But as a JE, as an exam, something that really promotes combining, synthesizing multiple concepts to answer a particular question. You're essentially trying to train for real world problem solving, right? And I think that definition is going to change. I might say that a JEE paper in 1995 was much harder than something in 2025. So things have changed for sure. But I think the core concept of trying to combine multiple concepts, to think across fields, to think in an interdisciplinary fashion to solve problems, I don't think that's going to go away. And maybe I'll just say something different, that one can potentially use AI to set harder JEE questions, right? Give more context, to give
Hope,
more.
hope,
Good one.
hope not. Hope not. Anyway, okay, Umar Mukhtar, what challenges? This is a little different, but quite relevant. What challenges do you see in training teachers to effectively use AI for cultivating critical thinking in the classroom, and how can institutions overcome them? Who
Oh,
would like to?
absolutely. We are, I mean, this is a challenge for me head on at Kalviam. It requires one of the key benefits AI usually can provide is personalization. But that is also very disruptive to the older system, which is more one to many. Typical ratio will be 1 is to 20 students or 1 is to 60 students, that range in a classroom. And I mean, for centuries, that has been the mode. And now suddenly we have a ability to do personalization. But I don't know how to do that in the classroom because classroom education has tuned itself to this for so many centuries even. And this is the change that we are navigating, and it's about figuring out where we have landed is the mentorship layer is what people in the classroom can really help with, and the actual imparting of the education, checking for the knowledge, personalizing is something that we can use agentic help with. This is, I think, the direction of the answer, and we'll see it evolve in the coming years. But the fundamental challenge is this changing from this one to many system to a one-to-one system in a classroom, and it is going to be a lot of changes, disruption.
What
Yeah,
what
and
has been what has been the experience? I would like to know when you talk to teachers, what do you get? What is the sense?
So here is the solution we have landed at so far is that there is certain parts. Let's take 1 hour of education. There's a certain part where there is imparting of some fundamentals, but there's a lot of synthesizing, analyzing, playing around with it that is core to really understanding it. So the way we do it is the first part can be 1 is to many, try to keep that as low as possible. And then the 1 is to 1 part, which is, hey, I will now engage with this topic while everyone else in the classroom engages with it, maybe through peer learning, pairing, in a group. There's multiple ways you can facilitate that, and AI agents are fantastic in doing that. Use it that way so that you get maximum learning out of that hour in some sense. So if you can measure learning and maximize the learning every hour, then you have a framework by which you can try out things, and can all 60 students not be bored in that session? Because you look at any classroom, right? Out of the 60, there'll be 5 who are fully interested, 30 who are okay, and then 20 completely zoned out. Why is a classroom like that? Why cannot all 60 be engaged? I think that promise or that's there, that's in within our reach. It's about us figuring it out, and at LBM we are also trying to deeply figure it out.
I would like to add. So this is one area, definitely what Anil has said very rightly, that personalized learning is one area which is very different than how teachers have been used to do it in traditional setting. The other area that we face at Fuge when we talk to teachers is the inertia. So most of the schools, and I can probably, I think we can segregate the schools in, let's say, A, B, C. Mostly in metros, there is a particular segment of schools, IB, etc., which have gone ahead and actually adopted to experiential learning, discussions, less of exams, less of route learning. But then there is also a segment of schools, especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities in India, which are still following the maybe 30-year-old decade practice of memorization and learning, and then giving it again the same questions in the exams, right? So this is definitely not the way to build critical thinking. And one of the key things that the teachers or the school has to change is change the pedagogy, the method that they are using to teach their children. And definitely there is huge inertia, because what we are asking them is to completely revamp how they are teaching that lesson. So what we probably are asking them is to change their 30-year-old practice, like let go of your route memorization, don't teach it like this, make it more discussion based, make it more interactive, give them case studies. So that is how at least we have been finding the challenges. The way to overcome is it definitely to handhold the teachers. There are a lot of schools which have been following traditional ways but are open to adapting the newer ways, understanding that this is the way forward, giving them a ready-made material that they can use, present it to class, the ready slides, the ready questions, the ready case studies. And that is where teachers are getting the comfort to move to the pedagogy which can actually help children develop critical thinking.
Okay. Here's a question from a journalism student. She's saying, as future journalists, we are trained to challenge power and question narratives. Nice to hear. If AI is used in our critical thinking training, how do we ensure it doesn't simply reflect the status quo or institutional biases, but actually encourages dissenting investigative thought?
I will say to this journalist or budding journalist that let's say your teacher was reflecting the status quo. What would you do? I think whatever you do in that case, you still need to do it in this case also, which is still challenging. Why not? That's my
Okay.
answer.
um, we will try and field almost all the questions, at least the key aspects. Framing CLOs for a course in higher education and using AI for that, will it justify? What are CLOs?
Class
Learning
learning.
objectives. Learning
Learning
objectives.
outcomes. Learning outcomes. Okay. Will AI be able to come up with learning outcomes? It can do anything.
Yeah, it can. I mean, given a structure of the program, of
Yeah,
course.
a
I
good
think
prompt.
with the way I see, uh, uh, I think if we have to figure out how AI plays out in the education space, um, without having a forcing function, the infrastructure and mechanics which have been rooted for the last at least 200 plus years, like Anil talked about, very difficult to change them, right? One essential forcing function to bring change in the education system is how the assessment slightly changes and starts becoming forward thinking. And once that happens, that will create a ripple effect of change across the system. And then we need to figure out how AI can come in aid of that change which needs to happen, in what shape and form. Otherwise, with the annual exam staying where it is and the question paper being what it is, trying to expect teachers to suddenly change may be a little too much to ask for.
Okay. Professor, he had replied to this, but I'll still flash it. It's an interesting question. Debugging is one of the best ways to build critical thinking in programming. If AI starts auto fixing errors, how do we preserve that learning process where students reason through mistakes themselves?
Yeah, so this is a
And
very good question, and in fact, I learned something very nice from a colleague. It apparently the persons who learn the fastest on Duolingo, a new language on Duolingo, are not the younger ones, are not the ones who already know many languages, but those that make the maximum number of mistakes per day. Because apparently the Duolingo folks have said this, and I think that really again ties to this point, right? You need to make mistakes and learn. But I think when you see AI fix your mistakes, that's you have someone reliable to sort of go to easy access, right? I would like to just think of AI as a pair programmer, as lots of people say, and someone who is definitely a lot more conversant with any language than you are. So I think it's just great to see AI fix your errors. And I think if you just overlook how AI fixed it and just went on with your coding, you may not have learned. But you have it right at you, right? You can. I mean, we were all using Stack Overflow to go and understand a little bit more. And my students themselves say, "Sir, I wish the younger students would use Stack Overflow instead of AI." But as long as you still understand why AI has made a particular correction to your code and so on, I think you will learn, right? I think the onus is on the user, and AI is actually a great tool in this space, I would think.
Okay, I think we have answered many questions. We took another 15 minutes extra, but do we have any closing comments? Any of the panelists would like to
Yeah, I
say
would like
something?
to come in. I would like to come in, and at the end of the day, AI is what us humans make of it. So while we figure out AI's use cases in our lives, we need to focus on our own discipline and habits and practices, our knowledge, attitudes, and practices around how we use AI in our lives as professionals, as learners, as teachers. So while AI and the tools and all get built, we also need to start thinking about what are the knowledge, attitudes, and practices which a teacher should have, which a learner should have at different age grades or grade levels, or a professional should have. So that's the softer side of keeping the agency with you in spite of working with AI.
Okay, I hope we can take this one last question. I didn't want it to go unanswered. Dr. Princess Carmel, in what
Okay.
ways, she's asking, in what ways can students, it's a very practical question, is a use case, so anyone can give tips to her, that would be
So,
nice.
so in
Yeah,
fact, I think, yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just
Go
be
ahead.
covering. I'll be covering from the grades 1 to 8, like K-12 perspective, like how we are teaching at Fuge, right? So practically, students whenever they are taking help of AI or learning with AI, first job is for them to struggle. The struggle is where the learning happens, and they first need to sit down, do their hands dirty, and do that work. Only once they have done it, they can use the AI to enhance the thinking. Ask AI to play a role of, let's say, you are doing a problem of Newton's third law. So ask it that you are an experienced teacher in Newton's third law. This is what I have done. How can you help me counter my points? And that is the best way to learn for anybody, student or adult, that ask them to play devil's advocate to you, ask them to bug your thoughts, and they will give you the questions which can help you to enhance your thinking and further deepen your knowledge in that particular area, be it the assignment or learning or anything.
I would like to add that the onus is also on the assessor, right? So how the assignments are assessed, and one of the ways to do it is to actually, I think somebody had said this. No, it was, I don't remember if it was one of the panelists or it was on a comment, that you go to three different AIs, get something written about the a particular topic, and then use that in class to write your own assignment, right? So this way you just use AI as another reference, right? Think of it as another book, but rather than somebody who just does your homework for you. And the other way to do this is to actually, we've tried this once in one of the courses, where the student has to also submit their chat with the LLM, right? Or what is it that you did versus what is it that you asked the LLM to do for you, right? So has the student actually engaged in critical thinking, or just, hey, solve this problem for me, right? So you get to really see what the student is doing and try to then you can typically encourage or reward good practices, good learning practices versus copying practices.
Yeah,
I suppose
and
it's like the CBSE doing open book exams. So use ChatGPT, but tell me, give me the paper trail.
I think in ChatGPT there's this study mode, which I think the panelists also spoke about earlier. As a simple tip, if you're using ChatGPT, use study mode. I think it has all the right prompts baked in. Whatever you ask, it'll kind of guide you through it. So that can be a very practical tip for everyone.
All right, the questions are. It's a good thing that the questions keep coming, but we have to close at some point. We are already 20 minutes. We've taken 20 minutes more for this webinar, but we will. There are some very interesting topics that this webinar has thrown up. We will revisit them, hopefully, with some of the panelists who've come today. Thanks, everybody. I thank the panelists. I thank the audience for all those wonderful questions, comments. They're very enlightening. Thank you, sirs. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
good day.